Well, we're back. It's Friday, and you know what happens on Friday? The Legal Tech Mastery Show with Amy Bowser-Rollins. That's me. I'm dressed in my Eagles gear today because my Eagles team is doing really well. Yay! I'm very excited about my team. So my husband is a Cowboys fan, and I married him anyway. And his team is sucking big time this year. Yep. Let's see, who do we have? Kathleen is here. Let's see. Kathleen says that she had a nice Thanksgiving and hope I do too. And look, Kathleen, my emojis are working. James says, over on YouTube, James says he's waiting, but he's not waiting anymore, because here I am. Let's see here. Just make sure the comments are coming in. Yeah, okay. Hey, Christine. Christine says, Happy Thanksgiving, Chargers won. Yeah, I heard. Kathleen over on Facebook says, Go Sports Ball. And Lisa says, hello. So good to see you guys here today. We're going to be talking about, so I help people get into litigation support. That's what I do. And there's a lot of steps that people can take to get into litigation support, depending on which angle they're coming from. And so when I get an email from somebody asking for help, depending on what they say, I ask them some follow-up questions, and then I start, divvying out the advice. So I have all this content that I've created that I have given to people or written for people, and I decided that this would be a good opportunity to sort of put all that in one place, and then I can tell people, go watch this video. If you're yes, Lisa, the answer is yes. If you're trying to get into litigation support, then this information will be helpful. You may have, if you've emailed me, you've gotten part of this information before. If you haven't emailed me, you might have seen some of the information on my site. But there's also stuff that I tell people in emails that's not on my site. So I'm trying to pull all that together today. And then if you are already in litigation support and you're adding people to your team, then some of the content I share today will be helpful, because you can give that to your new team member who is a newbie to litigation support. So I have a slightly new commenting system. I have the same commenting system I had for Facebook, but now it works for YouTube as well. So now I can, instead of watching them in two different places, I can get all my Facebook and YouTube comments into one feed and then put that on the screen for you guys. So that's really cool. All right. Peter's in the house. Peter on Facebook. Hi, Peter. Good to see you here. All righty. Did you guys pig out on? See, the older I get, the better I get at not pigging out. So my husband was making fun of me because we ordered food from Heavenly Ham. It's a store near my house where you can walk in and get everything and then cook it on the day of. So we did that, and he was making fun of me this year because I was adamant that we not have a bunch of leftovers. And so we literally have very little leftovers because I got just enough to feed both of us. So that's pretty cool. Did you guys pig out and stuff your face, or did you do pretty good with monitoring your input? All right, so timer's down. We're going to go ahead and get started here. Welcome back. This is the beginning of the Legal Tech Mastery Show. That was the pre-show. This is the show. So today we're going to talk about how to break into litigation support and things you can do to try and get that job in litigation support. But as I said in the pre-show, if you're already in litigation support, you'll find this information interesting. Talking as a requirement of doing a live show. You might get something out of this because some of the content I'll share today, you can turn around and share with a newbie that you add to your team if you hire newbies, which I hope you do. So, so my question was, did you stuff your face on Thanksgiving? And Lisa's saying, I did pretty good. I kept it simple. So did I. All right, so let's see. Let's shift over to my... Did you see how that did that? It shifted me over to the left and made room for some information for you. Okay, so we're going to get started here. I wanted to try something different with giving the information to you, so that's what we're doing today. I'm staying on the screen more, and I'll be able to fit your comments on the bottom left, which is good, and I can fit my content to the right. So we'll try this. I like switching it up and not doing the same thing every week. Okay, so the first thing is I send people sometimes. It depends on the conversation, but I just want to let you know that my story of how I got into litigation support is on my Welcome to My World page on my website. At the bottom of that page, the page isn't very long. There's a couple of links at the bottom, and usually people enjoy reading my story, and especially why I quit my 6-figure job. So that's all on the bottom of that page. So that's the first thing. All right, so here's an example of a question that I get. I'm not going to read all of them, at least I don't think I am, but I wanted to give you a feel for the questions before I give you the answers. So, I get lots and lots of emails, and I pulled some examples out, from past years. Pat Lucas says hi. Pat Lucas is in litigation support, and she's been in litigation support pretty much as long as I have, which is a long time. Okay, this is an example of a question. Somebody's looking for project management and EDiscovery, which, of course, if you work in our industry, those are very big topics. Okay, this one I get a lot. I don't know any of the software. How do you get experience? Ooh, James, that's awesome. I'm just interrupt what I'm saying and put this comment up. Okay, I don't know any of the software. That's a big one that I get a lot of times, and especially when they're interviewing and trying to get that job and they know that they're going to ask them about software and they don't have it. All right, another example is I want to learn more of the technical aspects of the job. Yep. If you don't know it, you don't know it, and you don't know what you don't know, so it's kind of hard. And then this one is an example of they want to learn more of the terminology and expand their knowledge. So maybe they've already started, but they want to know more and have resources. So they've, subscribed to my site and sent me an email. Okay, so this one is, I get a lot of paralegals wanting to move into litigation support. So it's either attorneys who don't want to practice law anymore, or paralegals, or IT people that work in the legal industry. So legal IT is what I call that. And they just want to switch over. They already have tech skills, but they want to switch over to litigation support because they think it looks cool, or someone told them they would be good at it or something like that. So this is an example of somebody saying that, she's reading the job descriptions and they're saying they want experience, but she doesn't know. And I get a lot of emails like this. Like, the job description has these software requirements and these skill set requirements, and where do I even begin, and what should I make sure I know before the interview versus what can I learn on the job. And and for me, my goal, especially when I had my paralegal students at Georgetown, my goal is to teach you as much as I can, with whatever resources we have at the time, but more importantly, to get you to retain a certain amount of information, a lot of the buzzwords we use, a lot of the definitions we use. If you can get through an interview showing them that you actually did your homework, you tried to learn as much as you can, and you retained it enough to speak about it. If you can talk about it, I had one of my students who didn't know anything about anything. He took the paralegal program, he took the EDiscovery and Lit Support classes at the end of that program, and then he spent about 4 days with me at my job. It was part of an internship. And I think he spent about a week, let's say a week. And I gave him a computer and a mouse and keyboard and said, here, do my job for me. And I pointed him in the right direction, and he did my work. And then he did phone interviews. And because he had actually had exposure from the program hands-on for the paralegal program and from working with me for a week, all he did was talk intelligently about it in the interview, and so much so that he interviewed with 2 of my friends, of course, and both friends sent me emails saying, wow, this guy really knows a lot for somebody who doesn't know anything, doesn't have any experience. So sometimes it's just a matter of getting the knowledge, as best you can, and knowing what the terminology is. But you can't just get through it with just knowing words, though. Okay, so here's another one where somebody moved from a legal assistant into a hybrid litigation support, and that happens a lot. My friend Erica, she was a paralegal for many years and eventually moved into paralegal / lit support, and now she's in full lit support, which is really cool. But this guy you could just tell from his email that he wanted to do a good job, and he thought he was doing good so far. He had talked the firm into getting some software in-house. So he was marketing, what he could do. But like many people that go into a smaller firm, they don't have an Amy Bowser. Like, they don't have a senior person around to mentor them or to shadow, so I get a number of emails like that where they finally got the job, but they don't have anyone to learn from, so, all right, let's move on. So this one is a paralegal who went into IT, or went into lit support 5 years ago. She said that her tech skills weren't that, she wasn't that skilled going into it. She's learned enough, and a lot of us learn, self-taught. But she's looking to get some more tech skills under her belt. All right, so this person is doing a lot of processing of EDiscovery, which is, somewhat technical, and loading it into a database, in this case, Relativity. But sometimes he needs help editing DAT files, which are, in our world, they're load files, which are text-delimited files, editing them, which we talked a little bit about last week, and then writing batch files. If you don't know how to write batch files, you learn how to do it because it saves you so much time. And so, he was emailing me and telling me this. All right, so this is one of the first things I point to, and I've only been able to point to this for a year and a half because Mike, I call him Mike Q because I don't want to butcher his last name. But he took 4 years, which I totally understand because he's in the same role I am of lit support inside a law firm. And he finally finished this book, and it's awesome because his perspective is the right perspective for people that I'm helping. So when he's talking about project management in a litigation support role, working with EDiscovery, it's very on point. So I've been sending everyone to buy his book. You're welcome, Mike. But I love that I have this now, a good resource to um, send to people. That's not just like there's other project management books. There's a legal project management book, but it's not the same as a litigation support role. So I'm really glad that I have that. Let me just make sure the comments are doing their thing. Okay, cool. All right, so far so good with comments. Last week we had a little snafu with the comments because the technology broke. Oops. All right, now this is another book, and don't freak out because I'm only telling people books because that's not true. But you go where the information is when you're trying to get into litigation support. So nobody knows about this book. I found this book, and it's actually a textbook that some professors use to teach e-discovery and litigation support. And I don't remember what school it is, but it doesn't matter because the book is available to anyone on Amazon. And I love the structure of the book. I have a screenshot of the table of contents coming up here next. But also, it comes with a DVD if you get the book as opposed to the Kindle version. It comes with the DVD, and it has a bunch of sample files and sample type documents and information on how to access software that they've, partnered with people. So anyways, the book, here's the table of contents. As you can see, if you're in this industry, you'll recognize that these topics are really good. And the book, the way it's written is easy to understand, which is really cool for somebody. I used to recommend EDiscovery for Dummies, and that was fine. It was a good overview, but this gets into the meat of things, and it really teaches you good stuff. And then this is a very long description that you may not be able to read right now, but read it back on your computer or just go to Amazon and read it because I copied and pasted it. But there's some key points in here. One, it's hands-on, partially hands-on, which is the only kind of training I believe in. The second paragraph talks about that you learn the full life cycle of discovery. At the end of the second paragraph, it talks about the fact that you learn the rules, the federal rules. And then the last paragraph talks about how you get access to these software products because they've partnered with them. And then the last part, it's scenario based. So they talk about how they have real life stories that they share. So, they basically bring it all together in the right way. Can you please rename the book? I can go backwards. So this one's EDiscovery. Basically, search for EDiscovery and then search for Amelia Phillips. I think it's 2 L's. But I wanted to show you the cover of it. Actually, I forgot. Here's the book itself. And here's Michael's book, which I also have in Kindle form because I like to search and highlight. Okay. Let's see here. So there's the table of contents. There's the long description you can't read. All right, now I don't expect you to read this, but this is a snapshot of a article that I wrote about, and people have teased me since then, about this article that I wrote a long time ago, that a database is a database is a database, because it doesn't matter really. People come to me, what software do I need to learn? I'm like, you're better off learning the foundational concepts of databases, and then you can go from one software product to another. Yes, some people like you to already know the software, but if you understand how databases work, you really can move from one software product to another easily. Okay, so this is an article I wrote about a database is a database is a database, but there's also a database fundamentals. So I searched YouTube and I found one that I liked the way the person was training it. And then I put the link in this blog post. So basically you could just search my site for this. Then I wrote an article on database data types. So This is something that's kind of hard to understand if you've never worked with databases before. And in this article, I talked about concordance, which is a legacy product that people are still using, summation, also legacy product, and then at Microsoft Access, just to give you a feel for how 3 different database products name their data types in the database. If you read the article, you'll see that they name them slightly different, but they're used the same way. There's always a text field that's fixed length, and there's always a text field that holds a bunch of characters. Okay, that's just an example. All right, so also in one of the articles on my website, and here I've just told you that I also have the playlist on my YouTube channel, I point people who are new to this whole world, I point them to this playlist also that I found, because, I'm trying to help people, so I go find stuff that I think is good. If I didn't create it, somebody else created it, and that's fine. So this is a professor who teaches about databases, and I thought he did a pretty good job. But he starts at the basics and he goes all the way up to big data, which is part of working with EDiscovery. So I'm not saying that you have to, watch all of every video, but you are going to learn things. And if you can grasp it enough right before you go to an interview, you can rattle it off and say, yeah, I learned this, that, and the other. But what I do tell people to do, whether in email form or in this article even that I wrote where I linked to this, the article is called Learning Litigation Support. And I tell everybody to go everywhere I tell you to and learn what you can and take notes and then come back to me and ask questions. Very few people do the last step of that. The people that do that are the people that I end up helping find a job. And I just wrote an article, a few months ago about 4 people that I helped find jobs. And I explained in the article everything that they did. They did the work and they got the job they wanted. Okay. All right. So that's a playlist already on my YouTube channel. All right. This I point people to, which is these are the first, probably within the first dozen articles I ever wrote. But the thing that's fun about litigation support, it's actually 8 jobs in one, and I listed out them in these articles. So there's a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and we do all 8 jobs in one, which is kind of funny and kind of cool, I think. Of course, I'm biased because I like my field. But anyways, I point people to this, so you can see on the top left, there's a button on my website that goes right to all these articles. But again, if you're new to litigation support, you want to get into litigation support, don't you think it would be helpful if you read what types of things litigation support people do on the job and then be able to speak to that when you're in the interview? I think so. All right, so in one of the articles, maybe the ones I've already mentioned or maybe the ones I'm about to mention, I had this one paragraph. This is so key. I have this one paragraph that talks about, do you have a natural acumen for tech? And if the person thinks they do, I'm like, how do you know? Did someone tell you? Did someone give you that feedback that you do, or you just feel really comfortable? So I went to Google and I did a search for computer skills assessment, and I found these really cool things that basically ask you questions about, technical stuff, and you can answer and you can get a feel for, oh, I guess I'm not as technical as I thought I was, or yeah, I got this, I can speak to this. Because unfortunately, some of the lit support managers, the hiring managers out there, some of them are a little, they take the interview process, I don't know how to say this nicely, but they basically try and trip you up. So I have like a basic list of questions I always ask, and I would, irritate recruiters because I could tell in the first 10 minutes, whether somebody had it or not. But some people like to throw out this obscure question and try and trip people up. So they might ask you something about computers and skills and, do you know this, that, or the other about computers? But I think it's a good gauge of whether or not you're technical. Peter says, what a great tip. Thanks, Peter. All right, so another place that I point people to now that I have this is the 100 Fast Tip Friday video tutorials that I created over a span of 2 years. So this is an example of the creating a batch file Fast Tip Friday that I already have. So if somebody, wants to learn that, I can point them to that. The same person that said they wanted to, get better at editing DAT files. There's a whole bunch of Fast Tip Friday, not a whole bunch, but there's a number of Fast Tip Friday video tutorials on working with text editors. We use Alter Edit, we use TextPad, we use Notepad++. Those are the big three. So I've got a variety of tutorials on those three products and some little tips and tricks of using them. So again, if you're trying to get into litigation support, you've never used these tools before, I encourage you to download the trial versions and go through the Fast Tip Fridays and be able to speak to it. That's as simple as it is. Okay, so I do have these, where are we on time? Okay, good. I do have 2 more articles that I always point people to. One is 5 tips to breaking into litigation support, and I want to point out that there's a paragraph in there about, actually two paragraphs I want to point out right now. One is timing. Sometimes it's just plain timing. You may do everything you're supposed to do. You may be prepared. You may be ready. And they're not willing to hire a newbie this year. I mean, I went through phases where I was in the mood to hire a newbie, or I wasn't in the mood to hire a newbie, but I leaned more towards newbies all the time, whereas some people just don't have the time to train with their current team, their current staff. They do not have someone available to train a newbie, so they'd rather get somebody with experience in so they can hit the ground running. But other times, it's just for whatever reason, they need a certain person and they're not ready to hire a newbie right now. So anyways, part of it's just timing. It's not anything you did wrong, you did everything right. And the second thing in that one article is networking. So I know this sounds like a little bit of a cliche, but there's so much to be said for leveraging your network or leveraging someone else's network. So people that come to me, if they do the work and if I help them to a certain point, then I start leveraging my network. But get out there in front of people. There's so many ladies that have gotten job opportunities just by attending women in EDiscovery meetings because they make those connections with people and they have the dialogue. Obviously, you do it in the right way. You don't come into a meeting cold and start talking about, I need a job. But, building those relationships. So go to any events that you can. That's what I talk about in the first article. The second one is, how do you get your resume to turn into a litigation support resume? So I list in that article, have you done this type of thing? Have you done this type of thing? There's a whole list. And if you have, you can highlight those skills that you've done, those tasks, those skill sets that you've had, like searching a database. Are you in a role outside of legal where you constantly searching a database and finding stuff? Do you know how helpful that would be in a litigation support role? So I list the types of tasks and then I tell you how to correlate that to litigation support. I'm just leaving your comment up there, Peter, because I think it's cool. It says, what a great tip. Okay, so James has a question here. Looking at early semi-retirement, I want to do remote work as a litigation support field that I can do remotely, and our firm's comfortable with remote workers. So more so service providers than firms. Firms it takes them longer to realize the benefit of letting people work remote. So service providers are more likely to do it. There's plenty of service providers out there in our industry that are hiring remotely. In fact, they told me that they run out of good people in their current city, so they start branching out to other cities, and they end up getting some really cool people. Also, if they're a West Coast company, they want people on the East Coast and vice versa, so they can cover all the hours. But nobody will let you work remote right off the bat because they don't know you, they don't know what your work ethic is like. So what I tell people is go into the interview process, and depending on your level of experience, offer to go on site to their location for X number of weeks. So say, whatever feels comfortable at the time. So like a minimum of 3 weeks, a maximum of 6 weeks, something in there where you're willing to be on site, learn how they do things, build a rapport with your manager and your teammates, and then start working remotely. So that's worked for a couple of people that I've helped. Okay, let's see. So this is the last thing I have, but it's pretty powerful. It's a free course on working with delimiters. So this again goes to the technical acumen thing, and it also goes to, do you like working with data? Because if you don't like working with data, you're going to struggle in litigation support if you think it's too tedious. So I created this course to October 2014, and over 100 people have registered, but only about 10 people have finished it. Speaking of doing the work. So some people finish it in a day, some people finish it in a weekend. And it teaches you basically how to work with the text editors I mentioned earlier, delimited files, all the different types of ways that we parse data, and a little bit of Excel, a little bit of taking data from Word and, in from one format to another. So if you come out of that, if you go to this page, you'll see, and scroll down, you'll see a bunch of comments from people that commented after they took the free course. And number one, it's all hands-on. You're actually following along with me in the video, and you're doing it yourself. And number two, you really, if you come out of it with, oh my God, that was so much fun, which some people do, then litigation sports for you. Okay, let's go back to here. All right, let's see what we got here. Love data. I was a librarian. I know you, Ms. Huber, but I don't remember your first name. I know we interact a lot in social media and stuff. So let me know your first name so I can say that. Okay, so that's all I have for you today. But I am really glad that I put this all together in one video so I can start, pointing people to it. So hopefully, if you're in the right place, like a litigation support person who's hiring newbies, or you're looking to get into litigation support, hopefully you'll find this helpful. And Karen, thank you, Karen Huber. Hopefully you'll find this helpful. So if you're a football fan, go Eagles. And I will be here next week at the same time. So I hope to see you here. Season 1 is going to last through December 15th. So, and then I'll take a break. Thanks, James. I'll take a break and then come back after the holidays with a new set. I'll redesign the set just to switch things up a little, and that'll be fun. So I think I have, the next couple weeks, I have hopefully a couple of interviews coming up. I'm trying to set those dates right now. And it's always fun when I can have somebody else on the screen with me and I can interact with them. So, and you guys get a kick out of it too. One of them I'm hoping to get is technical, and the other one's professional development-ish. So, all right. Happy Thanksgiving weekend. I'll go with that. And don't spend too much money on Black Friday specials. All right. Take care. See you next week.